Hello, friends, and welcome to a very special edition of Roundhill Radio. This is the 250th episode that we recorded live in our worship service a couple of weeks ago now. So if you were able to be with us live, thank you so much for being there for this really exciting and monumental celebration. So I wanted to share it with you, get you the audio of this amazing day. So enjoy. Welcome to Roundhill Radio. Through our conversations, we discover the holy in the ordinary, look for moments of grace and peace, and redefine what we're talking about when we talk about faith. Good morning, everybody!
Good morning!
We're so glad to be here. This is our 250th episode, and we are just so glad to be here with you all. Ed, would you like some stats?
I'd like some stats.
So over our 250 episodes, we have had 22,660 listens. We have recorded 98 hours. It's actually 97 hours, 33 minutes, and 29 seconds, but I'm sitting on an episode that Lily and I have recorded, and Lillian and I talked for like 45 minutes.
Oh,
so that, and then our number one episode was actually our Braver Angels conversation with, his name is unfortunately escaping me, but that was a really, really powerful episode for people.
Bringing people together of very different opinions.
Yes.
Political opinions, yep.
Fascinating.
To work together.
And then besides the United States, we have also had listeners from the UK, Germany, Singapore, Belgium, Russia, Vietnam, Ireland, Brazil, Japan, Spain, Australia, Sweden, Ukraine, and then I ran out of Post-it notes. So the list goes on, and those are all listens above like 100 listens each country. So, hey, look, we're doing a thing, guys. It's fun. We have a good time. I was telling somebody recently that this is one of those ideas that like we don't know where the idea came from. I was telling the women's group last week. That's what I was doing. We didn't know where the idea came from, and it just sort of happened.
Right.
So Lillian and Ed know that before the podcast records, I just start chatting, and then they actually focus me down. And that's why the Ed episodes are always very focused, because he's very good at keeping it tight. All right, so what are we talking about today, Ed?
And that is our classic question. When we get together, what are we talking about today? It's a little bit like making abstract art. You know, you have some materials there. You don't really know what's going to go on the canvas. Sooner or later, you got to take one of your materials and make a mark. So because it's Mother's Day, it seemed important to be able to talk about Mother's Day and its meanings, its many meanings for us. And so as a way of getting into that, we're going to choose two scripture lessons. So those are included in your order of service. I'm going to invite you to look along as we read them. There are not many examples. The Bible is a vast book, but there are not many examples of relationships between mothers and daughters. There is a beautiful one, however, between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. And that's contained in the book of Ruth, which is a very short book contained in the Old Testament. And this story of Ruth, known as the book of Ruth, it starts off in a very sad way. It's set during a famine, and it's shaped by grief. And this story in the book of Ruth follows these two women who both turn out to be very vulnerable widows. Naomi is one of them. She's from Israel. And her daughter-in-law is named Ruth. And Ruth is from the country of Moab, located just next to Israel. These are not two people who normally would be connected. They are not people who normally would be relating to one another. And yet here they are. Very different stages in life. They're from different countries. They may even speak somewhat different languages. After each of them loses a spouse, after loss and displacement, Naomi says to her daughter-in-law, you really ought to go back home. You ought to go back to Moab and be with your own people. She encourages her to do that. But Ruth refuses to, and she chooses loyalty and love over security. So Naomi takes her daughter-in-law with her back to Bethlehem, and this is where Ruth will speak words of devotion to her that have echoed across the generations as a testimony to love. So here's what happens. Naomi said, look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth said, do not press me to leave you, to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord do thus to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you. When Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. And what follows after that is a very beautiful relationship between these two women, and actually a good ending at the ending of the story. The second text I'm going to ask Lillian to read is from the Gospel of John, and it continues this theme of love that is, in a sense, that gets picked up from the story of Ruth. Lillian?
How's the best way to do this?
Right there is great.
Okay, will they still be able to hear me?
It's fine.
Okay. Our reading from the Gospel of John. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you forever. This is the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive because it neither sees him nor knows him. You know him because he abides with you, and he will be in you. I will not leave you orphaned. I am coming to you. In a little while, the world will no longer see me, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. On that day, you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. They who have my commandments and keep them are those who love me, and those who love me will be loved by my Father, and I will love them and reveal myself to them. Here ends our reading.
Thank you, Lillian. So our conversation is going to be open, right?
Yeah.
We're encouraging you as we get going here. If you have questions, comments, thoughts you'd like to add and interject, we would love to be able to do that. One of the features of the podcast is that we will often have the ability for people to check in with us and add to the conversation. That's something that we like to do here at Round Hill Community Church. So the broader theme for today, Mother's Day. I'm just curious, does anyone know the origin story for Mother's Day? How did it get started? I always want to know how things got started. You know, where did it begin and how's it changed and developed? Does anyone actually know where Mother's Day got its start? It's interesting, right? So, yes, here we go. Heather, do we have what?
Oh, pointing. Oh, Janet knows.
Oh, Janet. Okay.
Had a great explanation about how it started, and it started because mothers were tired of their sons dying in war.
Okay.
And so there was a leader, Julia, but I'm not sure full name, who organized a group of moms to basically take power, to get the vote, to be able to weigh in and stop wars before they started.
Great. So just to repeat what Janet had said, it all started with basically one woman's decision to rally other women to organize against war. Now that woman was Julia Ward Howe. Now that name might be recognizable to some because she wrote a famous hymn. Does anyone know the name of that hymn? You'd be lined up for Jeopardy. The Battle Hymn of the Republic, right? Now, I want to read you a couple of lines from the Battle Hymn of the Republic and just see if these sound like a peace hymn to you. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Many of you will know these. Who is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored and has loosed the fateful lightning of a terrible swift sword. God's truth is marching on. God has sounded forth the trumpet that shall never call retreat and is sifting out the hearts of all before the judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, to answer, and be jubilant, my feet. Our God is marching on. Doesn't sound like a peace hymn to me. It was written for abolitionists to begin to encourage support that eventually, of course, led to the American Civil War. And Julia Ward Howe was one of those voices that wanted to add some energy and add some music to what was happening at the time. And so that's what happened. She wrote this amazing hymn, and it's a difficult hymn when we look at it maybe now, but down the road, she came to change her mind. And she came to change her mind because she saw in the aftermath of the Civil War the incredible destruction that had been caused, the long-term destruction for those who had been involved, particularly as soldiers. Her heart really went out to them. So it was Julia Ward Howe who in 1870, right, so that's only 5 years after the Civil War, wrote what she is now known as the original Mother's Day Proclamation, which she titled An Appeal to Womanhood Throughout the World. And here's what she says there. Arise then, women of this day, arise all women who have hearts. We will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We, women of one country, will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. In the name of womanhood and humanity, I earnestly ask that a general Congress of women without limit of nationality may be appointed to promote the alliance of the different nationalities. It was a global appeal to peacemaking. So, Leslie?
She has a way with words.
She has a way
she?
with words.
It's just which direction she chose to point them.
Right, right. So she started off by writing a hymn that would, arouse people's passions to defend liberty and so on, and to overthrow slavery, but then she changed.
Yeah.
Right.
I find a lot of power in that line of, we will not, thank you. The sons of our nation to harm the sons of another nation. I think is really putting such a fine point on it, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Actually beautiful.
So that's part of the backstory to Mother's Day. And this began to be a movement that spread from one country to another. There really was never one great international congress of women that was created out of this. But her Mother's Day proclamation began to be very important, and it actually did lead to the formation of many other peace agencies and organizations over the years who took her words and took them very seriously. So I want to turn for just a second, though, to another woman and ask you if anybody recognizes the name of Anna Jarvis. Not really a name that's known to us, right? Anna Jarvis loved her mother a lot, and she wanted to honor her mother in a very special way. And it was Anna Jarvis in the early part of the 20th century who decided that she wanted to create a day of honor and remembrance for mothers, specifically for mothers, not really related to Julia Ward Howe. However, Anna Jarvis's mother had been very involved in peacemaking initiatives following the Civil War. It was her mother who brought together former Confederate and Union soldiers in an effort of reconciliation to see if she could get them to be more closely aligned with one another. So there's a little bit of commonality there. It was at the time of Anna Jarvis that organizations and companies like Hallmark Cards had discovered that wouldn't it be great if we could sell chocolates and we could sell cards and we could do all sorts of amazing things to honor mothers. Now, we might make a little bit of money on the side, right?
Yeah.
It's the United States. And that's how these two amazing forces started to get going at the same time. Anna Jarvis said, we need Mother's Day. And Hallmark said, yes, we do. And Anna Jarvis, by the way, was enraged at the whole industry that had developed at that time. It was very interesting. And she tried to have legislation passed at the federal level to bar that kind of entrepreneurial work. It was really interesting. She felt like her whole life purpose had been destroyed by the commercialization, what she called the commercialization of Mother's Day. And there's a very interesting twist in the story, then maybe we can open this up to a broader conversation. Anna Jarvis so devoted herself to the cause of creating Mother's Day that she really did it at the expense of her own well-being. She lived in very meager circumstances. She had no financial resources to speak of. She didn't enjoy good health towards the end of her life. And who was it who wound up supporting her at the end of her life but Hallmark Cards and the Hallmark Company and others, because they saw what had happened to her, and they decided to reach out and actually supported her financially until she died, which was such an odd twist to the story because she had spoken out in her entire life against them, and yet by the end of her life, she actually was supported. So it's one of those twists of history that make for a really great story.
Good story.
And so now you have these different threads, right? Julia Ward Howe gets everything started with her Mother's Day proclamation, and then you have Anna Jarvis coming in, and you have Hallmark and all of the other things that have gone together over the years to add to what has now become Mother's Day.
I'm genuinely surprised, and they might have, that they haven't made a movie, that Hallmark Channel hasn't made a movie about their, their own thing.
It might happen.
I mean, one never knows.
Right, yeah. It does seem like it would be the perfect
One would think, yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Yep, completely agreed. So, thoughts of where we are right now. This is how Mother's Day has come into being. And as I said earlier, we now think about the way in which we can image God as mother. We think about the way in which congregations mother and nurture our children and youth into, their lives as faithful people. What are the thoughts we have? Any comments or questions about these stories and this unfolding history of Mother's Day? Any thoughts?
Riza.
Risa.
In our modern world is thinking that the idea of what mother is has broadened. It's not a traditional source, at least in my view, it's who are the mothering figures, who are the people that nurture. They may not be biological, they may be other people in your life that represent some sort of, nurturing person to you or to your children or whatever it might be. So I think that's lovely to sort of see that kind of blossom and grow.
Yeah. Yes, we are limited with our microphones, so I'll repeat but Risa was saying, that the idea of motherhood in a sense has broadened to include more and more people, and some biologically connected and some not. By the way, I preached on Mother's Day many, many years ago, and the Sunday after that, someone gave me the sheet music to an old song that's called "Oh Dad, You've Been a Mom to Me."
Aww.
I don't know if anyone has heard of that song, but it's a very old song. But, now at this point, I was watching a show the other night about a group of people in a school, and one of the teachers says to another teacher, we will be social workers here, we will be coaches, we will be mothers, and among a number of other things. But I think that picks up, Risa, what you're saying, right? And in our world, we are counting on more and more people around us to sometimes provide that sense of nurture. So thank you. Heather, did you also?
Oh, we're just going to say another name could be For Those Who Care Day.
For those who care.
Not just caregivers, but for those who care.
Yeah, for those who care in general. Yeah, picking up that theme. Exactly. Yes, Mary.
I had a father who wasn't a lecturer to his children at all. But every time we had Mother's Day and Father's Day, he said, Hallmark. Making money from what you were doing. He said, I love the children's cards that they make at school because that's what Mother's Day should mean to everyone. And he said, how
Yes.
Not buying.
Yeah.
We were talking about this in choir, how the magic of a handmade card feel. I mean, I got one yesterday. She came home from school and she was beside herself excited. It had a big flower on the front. She'd like traced her name, you know, and like, I mean, I'll be buried with that thing, you know, and it's just magic. It's just magic. So the case for the handmade card and hand drawn anything, no offense, Hallmark, but those are better. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's something really precious, right, about when something is made for us. And that has been, I mean, certainly my memory of being in school, is definitely that experience of you make something, you bring it home, and, everyone makes a big deal of it.
Big
And
deal.
Leslie and then Corrine.
I'm saying it might be time to come full circle from the original story and go back to an international conference against war.
Yes, yeah. It's, I think that now people are rediscovering the original proclamation. And that's one of the exciting things about asking about the origin story, right? And what would it mean to have an international conference of peacemakers? And, I'm thinking at the time that Julia Ward Howe I believe Julia Ward Howe had 6 children. And I try to imagine what her life was like. And here's a person who, as busy as she was, as, all of the demands being heaped upon her, that she still had this vision of mothers leading this initiative in this way. So great, great vision, Leslie. Really appreciate that. Corrine.
Just to talk about that first story too, I think it's interesting because it has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, so if I'm capturing this correctly, is that as your lives with your children unfold as a mother, your understandings evolve. They change, right? Partly because of them and their questions and their interests.
Or even you with your relationship with your own mother, but my mom had that always.
Yeah, I think that's why Mother's Day, it's one of those days every year that I approach with, I guess the word would be nuance, because I feel like it can be a very complicated day for people. And it evokes memories, sometimes of loss for those whose mothers have died. And it can bring up many different kinds of hopes and feelings and reactions and reflection about our own lives. And I have known people who, for various reasons over the years, dads who've had to play the role, to be in the role of mother and father for a variety of reasons. And that's another part of the nuance of this day. So it's a day with so many meanings, I think, and possibilities. And that's why that, as Mary was pointing out from her father's words, that it's really about recapturing that homemade, feel. It was funny when I was traveling just this last week, especially I was in Switzerland, and everywhere you go, the thing that is the best thing that a restaurant can say, right, is hausgemachte, something that's homemade, right? And you hope it's really homemade. They're not just saying that. But it's that sense of love being made at home and love being carried forward from one generation to the next. Charlie.
He's made enunciation to the Pieta.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mother.
Right. So this huge example, as Charlie's pointing out, of motherhood in the New Testament, primarily because of Mary. So I will say, in my travels in the last, I don't travel a whole lot, so things really stand out for me. But I traveled from Switzerland, especially a part of Switzerland that is predominantly Protestant, and where you walk into a church and it's very, very lean and spare. There are no images. I then traveled to Milan, Italy.
Oh.
A lot of Mary.
More is more is more.
Exactly, right? And one of the buildings that's the most dominant architecturally in Milan is the Duomo, which is the cathedral in Milan. And who is at the pinnacle? If you walk all the way up, there's only 250 steps. If you walk all the way to the top, to the roof, what do you see at the very pinnacle of that building? Mary. And she has a crown of stars atop her head, which is a reference to her that's made in the book of Revelation. But she is the most important figure. And for many, many years, there was actually a town ordinance in Milan that did not allow any building to rise above Mary. I mean, that's how important she was, and her life as a mother. So in that tradition, Charlie, to your point, it elevates Mary, right, to this extraordinary degree that Protestants in some ways have never quite gotten, and actually pushed against for some reasons. But
Am I allowed to say I've always found that odd?
carry on.
I have always found that odd. So actually, I worked at this church in Cleveland, and we had a tapestry in the back of Mary, but it was like so far in the back that like really only the organist and the choir saw it. I was always sort of like, it was odd that it was there. It felt odd, and then it was odd that it was like not really shown very much.
Right.
It just seems incongruous with some theologies that Protestants hold.
Well, and you think on this day, certainly today, there will be a lot of thinking about Mary in Italy, as the mother of Jesus, as connected with Mother's Day and how important that is. So it's a very interesting and powerful connection, and something I think we can learn from, Charlie, in our own Protestant tradition. Wonderful comments. Yes, Becky.
I am very impressed that our church has done an outreach to the community chest about helping young women who are having children and they're not prepared for nursery school, and so they are being given mentors to help them do the parenting, I guess, that is necessary. And how important that kind of work about being a mother sometimes gets pushed aside as, oh, you're just a mother. You're not important.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well said,
Thank
Becky.
you, Becky. Whoa
guys.
is right. Yes.
Whoa. Calm it down.
So Becky, thank you for mentioning this, right? Because the Outreach Committee, Mary Ann Debnar, right back up here, the Outreach Committee chose to dedicate $30,000 over 3 years to this program through the Greenwich United Way. It actually helps to support mothers whose children are sometimes lagging behind educationally. So it helps the mothers to also be a supportive presence to their children educationally, as well as in all the other ways, so that children can enter on a level playing field. So that program, I'm so glad you said this, because it struck me when we were thinking about this, and the grant, Mary Ann, that you and the Outreach Committee made, thank you for your vision. Yes, it's supporting children, but it's also supporting moms and giving mothers, fathers too, but mothers this inner security that, okay, my children are going to be entering school in a better way than would have been possible otherwise, thanks to getting really outstanding preschool education. Mary Ann, did I say that correctly? Okay. So thank you, Becky, for elevating that. Yes.
And thank you so much for listening. Round Hill Radio is brought to you by the friends and members of Round Hill Community Church. For more information, please visit roundhillradio.org.